Of teams on these. So we had down trees that led to the closure of Northwest Skyline. We depend on our partners, the foresters at the Parks and Rec Urban Forestry Department. They responded and were able to clear Northwest Skyline before 5 a.m. And so really limited the potential disruption there with that quick response from urban forestry. Southeast Barbara Welch Road has down trees and down power lines. That's always more complicated. You've got to look out for the safety of the foresters. And so first you have to get the power company out there and make it safe for the foresters to work, to then clear the trees, and then do oftentimes subsequent work on the trees and power lines as well to fully restore the area and make it safe. So Barbara Welch at Southeast Foster Road will remain closed probably all day today, Wednesday, and potentially reopening Wednesday night or Thursday. We were able to reopen West Burnside, which is obviously a major corridor. Thousands of vehicles per day typically would use West Burnside.
Coming up this weekend, you probably know it's anticipated. We're going to get snow, maybe some ice, lots of things that could be happening that will all, of course, affect the roads. And that's what we're going to talk about right now from the Portland Bureau of Transportation. We have Dylan Rivera joining us, who I'm sure is having a very, very busy week right now, preparing for things. And Dylan, thanks for being here. And I think to start off, I guess let's just kind of talk about what happened last night. And did any of the roads really get affected by any of this weather?
For the most part, Tuesday night came and went with a dusting of snow at high elevation, as was forecast. Actually, about 1.5 inches at the heaviest in some areas above 500 feet elevation. For the most part, most Portland neighborhoods had just a wet, cold January evening, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. We did have 1.5 inches of snow that did cause 3 road closures, and we were able to clear 2 of those this morning.
So you clear them. Did you bring up a plow and actually clear those that way?
We had a combination of teams on these. So we had down trees that led to the closure of Northwest Skyline. We depend on our partners, the foresters at the Parks and Rec Urban Forestry Department. They responded and were able to clear Northwest Skyline before 5 a.m. And so really limited the potential disruption there with that quick response from urban forestry. Southeast Barbara Welch Road has down trees and down power lines. That's always more complicated. You've got to look out for the safety of the foresters. And so first you have to get the power company out there and make it safe for the foresters to work, to then clear the trees, and then do oftentimes subsequent work on the trees and power lines as well to fully restore the area and make it safe. So Barbara Welch at Southeast Foster Road will remain closed probably all day today, Wednesday, and potentially reopening Wednesday night or Thursday. We were able to reopen West Burnside, which is obviously a major corridor. Thousands of vehicles per day typically would use West Burnside. And so what we found there were not only down trees, but also abandoned vehicles. And that is really a crucial point that we need everyone to understand, that abandoned vehicles causing road closures is preventable. And we need everyone to think ahead to make sure we reduce that impact on everyone.
To that extent, thinking ahead, looking at what's coming through on Friday and Saturday, depending on the models, and I know this changes. We have our meteorologists who go through all of that, but it does look like we're going to get snow and potentially ice and very cold temperatures, which naturally can really affect the roads in a negative way here in Portland. So to start off talking about that, I guess for preparing ahead, what kind of preparations is PBOT doing right now to prepare for the potential ice and snow on the roads?
PBOT is monitoring the forecasts very closely throughout the day, every day, as we do this time of year, and especially ahead of a severe event like we're told to expect Friday night. We need the public to monitor the forecast. We need the public to prepare themselves as well for Friday night and Saturday. And so what that means is prepare to avoid travel Friday night and Saturday morning. And for many people, that could mean avoiding all travel starting Friday morning. The easiest way to avoid having to get stuck in a Friday evening commute is to not have a Friday morning commute. And so if you're able to telework on Friday or avoid trips on Friday, get them done Thursday night, get them done on Saturday afternoon or next week. Avoid traveling during times of inclement weather, and know that today, Wednesday, the forecast says snow will come Friday night, probably missing the evening commute, but maybe not. And we will probably have some adjustments and changes, and maybe radical changes to that forecast between now and 5 p.m. Friday. So if you need time to prepare yourself and your family, take the time now, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. If you telework Friday and the Friday afternoon commute is just a rainy, wet day, then hey, consider ourselves lucky. And then the snow comes Friday night and we're all better prepared for in that event. But better to be prepared and over-prepared even than under-prepared. So that's our advice to the public right now. That's what everyone can do. And if you're prepared, then what you're doing is you're helping everyone get home safe by avoiding your vehicle being the one that's abandoned on West Burnside, blocking thousands of other people, blocking snowplows, blocking buses and other services. So it's really important to think beyond ourselves and prepare in advance. The really great thing about this forecast for Friday night is we have it a few days in advance. When we have a few hours in advance, it's really hard for people to prepare. It's too late for folks to prepare. And we all remember February and what that was like when we had a couple hours and most folks didn't get the message, and it did not go well for thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, really.
Yeah, I remember all of those cars abandoned on Highway 26 and all over the city when that one came through. Well, this one with the the notice ahead of time, obviously advocating for people to stay home if they can, to stay off of the roads. But what is the regimen? What is the plan that you have in place to open up those, at least the main arteries through the city?
So our plan is to have the right equipment at the right location at the right time. And so given a forecast of what we consider a severe winter weather event Friday night, we're going to throw everything we've got at it. Starting as early as Thursday night, we'll have additional salt spreaders on the streets because we've seen a forecast of potentially a trace of snow on Thursday night, and that'll make us better prepared for Friday night. We'll have a full call out of PBOT staff, 100% devoted to winter weather response Friday, all day daytime, and Friday night, and all day Saturday. So 24-hour coverage, all 65 snow plows, all de-icing trucks, all road closure trucks, all support crews, all on 12-hour shifts. So we have around-the-clock coverage to reduce the impact to the traveling public. And it's important for everyone to remember what that means. The city's mission in winter weather is to keep public transit and first responders access available and keep those routes accessible as much as possible, so we can get police, firefighters, ambulances where they need to go, keep TriMet buses running as much as possible. And the reason we do that is when we keep those TriMet buses running and we keep those routes operable, then that means you can stay off the road, you can walk to your nearest bus and get your trips done that way. If you're not able to telecommute, if you're not able to get things done by staying at home. That's why we talk so much about the routes that we plow, the routes that we salt. It's to keep those buses working. And so if we keep those TriMet buses operational, then you can take that TriMet bus and you don't have to risk hitting the road in your car, abandoning your vehicle, potentially in a bad place, and becoming a problem for everyone else.
So it sounds like you're talking about specifically there with the buses. So it's maintaining those main roads where the major lines are going through, where the major bus lines and the major transit lines are going through. Is that right?
Yes. If you think of the geography of your neighborhood, where are the busier streets in your immediate area within a quarter mile, half mile of your home or your business? Those are those streets where you have a bus. A lot of them are the major streets that we all know: the Burnsides, the Sandys, the Woodstock and Barber, and those. But a lot of them are smaller, more neighborhood connectors. Places, maybe Belmont or
the kitchen that they used to use for our morning feature show called Morgan Day Oregon. That kitchen's really nice. You could open the cupboards
on our
show the pipes underneath the sink.
and so it's important for folks to know that our primary routes are going to be our top priority. Routes that we've identified that TriMet need, and that will serve police, fire, and first the route to emergency. We our neighborhoods. Those streets are too narrow for us to move our equipment on, and we don't have the capacity to narrow streets.
And I'm not sure that this might just be on my end. Some of the audio cut out there. So for anybody watching, that if that happened to you, that wasn't just you. But it sounds like those major places for fire, ambulance, for emergency services, for TriMet, those are the ones that are going to be cleared for that. One other question that I had for you here too, and I know you've got a busy day, so I want to get you out here. But you mentioned 65 snowplows, I believe, is what you said. Do you feel like you're adequately supplied with snowplows, with de-icer, with everything that you need to manage this storm and maybe even any future storms that are coming up this winter?
We have the resources we need for this weekend, and we have access to the resources we need this winter. We do have some budget cuts we've been talking about pretty significantly since September. Those budget cuts, that $32 million, is a budget issue starting in July, the fiscal year starting July 1, and that would affect next winter, but it's not expected to affect this weekend or the remainder of this winter.
That's great. Good to know. Good to know. Well, Dylan, thank you very much, for joining us. I really appreciate your information and time and talking about this and all the hard work that I know you and the entire team is going to be putting in here over the next several days, no matter what happens with this storm that could be coming through. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, thanks, Dylan.
Thank you. Thanks for helping keep everyone prepared and helping everyone get home safe.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely doing our best. So thanks very much. I'll let you go back to your day. All right, there we go. So appreciate Dylan joining us to talk about that for what PBOT is doing to prepare for this storm coming up. And again, if you want to keep up with all of the information that we have, the latest forecast, we've got all of that at kptv.com. And of course, we're working around the clock as well to keep you up to date with that information as things shift or change. But again, it does look like Friday evening at some point, maybe into the night, that snow and then potentially ice coming through as well. So we'll know more here in the next couple of days as we get closer to it, but definitely anticipating that. But I think you all know probably by now that there there are some blizzard warnings going into effect for the Gorge and for the Cascades. And one of those hasn't happened for quite a little while. So we're going to be discussing that and more right now. Thank you very much to Trina Jensen joining us from the National Weather Service here in Portland. Trina, thanks for being here. I would imagine that this is a very busy time for you.
Yes, it is.
To put it lightly.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks for doing this. And I think to start off, just a few questions, and one of which, though, that I know a lot of people end up having, including myself. What constitutes an actual blizzard?
Okay, so to have a blizzard warning, you need a couple of ingredients. You need to have heavy snow and strong winds. So what makes it a blizzard warning is that those winds can reduce the visibility down to, could be 0, but usually less than 1/4 of a mile. So it's a combination of the snow and the wind.
So those are the two things that you have to have. And I know that we've had it in the Gorge more recently. I think 2021 was the last time.
Yes.
And oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, the last time we've had issued a blizzard warning for the Oregon Cascades was in December 2012. So this is very rare. And one reason why it's rare is normally with our winter storms, we have south winds. But for this winter, a front that we're having tomorrow, the heavy snow and the wind is from a more of a west direction. And that tends to funnel in the winds up our valleys and canyons and where our communities are, and can give us higher wind.
Yeah, so that combination, which is obviously rare for that happening up there. Does this have anything to do with just the overall effect of El Nino?
El Nino has a bigger correlation with temperatures for the Pacific Northwest, of it being warmer than normal. And this is definitely, we're going into a cold period where our temperatures are not warm. But during El Nino, it's, that's a long-term climate average, and we can have cold storms within the El Nino. As far as precipitation and snow, there's less of a signal with El Nino.
And so with these warnings, we've got them both, as we mentioned, for the Gorge and for the Oregon Cascades. What are some key things that people should be concerned with when it comes to having a blizzard warning there?
Yeah, so driving is not a great idea. So we are expecting blizzard conditions above 3,000 feet. So all the Cascade passes are prone to have these conditions, and it's very dangerous driving conditions. And another thing too, for those that live in the area, it's just dangerous outside in general. So the best thing people can do is to stay home.
Then what are some of the most common misconceptions that people have about something like this with a blizzard warning?
That's a good question. It's so unusual for us to issue blizzard warnings.
I guess that's what I mean. It's so weird here to have that. So it's like, you always think of blizzards happening elsewhere. The Gorge, they may be a little more used to it, but it's just such a foreign concept in reality to actually experience it.
And something else that's unusual for here, where we're not used to getting it, is our snow tends to be wetter and heavier. And so when you have that wet, heavy snow and wind, you can have a lot more power outages. So I think that's one thing that people, maybe just focusing on the winter weather and the snow aspect of it, but we could have some down tree limbs or even small trees come down. And just with that heavy snow on the branches, it could make those trees even easier for them to blow over than they would normally in these types of winds. So power outages is something to be concerned about. And if, we really stress that to only drive in emergencies for this, but if you have to drive and you find yourself trapped in snow, it's so important to not remain in your car with the gas idling. I think that's another thing that people often, especially on the west coast where we don't see these conditions too often, forget about the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning and just heating from fuel-based.
That is something, that you would probably think, okay, yeah, I'm going to stay here in the car. It's warm. I'm enclosed. But that's the danger of something like that. So say someone is out there and they do get stuck. and the snow is piling up. Is there a recommended thing for them to do?
Yeah, so if anyone is planning on driving, the first thing to do is to make sure you have a winter survival kit in your car with you. That includes blankets, gloves, hats, extra dry clothing, warm clothing, to try to keep yourself warm without keeping the car idling. If the snow is above your exhaust pipe, definitely don't leave it idling. But you can heat up your car if the snow's not that high, every once in a while, and turn it down. But please pack extra water with you, food. Make sure your cell phone is charged and you have extra batteries, because you may have to ride it out for a little bit.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I've got one of those, a big giant battery pack in my car that I keep just for those occasions that get stuck. Any other tips or tricks that you would recommend for somebody who's, number one, I guess, don't go out if you don't have to. But any other tips or tricks for people to prepare ahead of time before this actually comes in?
Yes, for those communities that are in the Cascades, if you live in the Cascades, it's also good to prepare your home and your house, because you could have power outages. So you may want to make sure you have some food that is non-perishable, because your refrigerator may be going out of power. Also, again, charge all your appliances that you need to communicate or for your well-being ahead of time. Have flashlights handy, candles handy, because it's very possible that the power could go out. If you have to go outside, make sure you don't have any skin exposed, because with the temperatures will feel even colder with the winds, with the wind chill factor. And it could be cold enough to potentially give hypothermia or frostbite if you're out for a significant amount of time. So just a good idea, wear your hat, wear your gloves, keep covered, wear a scarf, and try your best to not stay out very long.
That's all great advice, I think, for everybody to think about right now, because this is just to talk about the actual weather side of things. This is scheduled to start. Can you explain when?
Yes, Tuesday morning, early Tuesday morning. So late tonight. We'll just say late tonight.
Yeah.
And all the way through Wednesday and into Wednesday afternoon. So I do want to mention, or I do also want to say, for those that live below 3,000 feet, we also have a winter storm warning out for elevations above 1,500 feet. So the main difference is we just don't have those really strong winds, but the snow is expected to be heavy. We're expecting, in general, around 1 to 4 feet in the Cascades. Of course, higher amounts for the ski resort areas and the higher elevations. Wednesday, behind the front, the snow levels may lower down to around 1,000 feet. So areas closer to the metro may actually see some snow in the West Hills. We're not expecting a lot, but it could affect the Wednesday morning commute.
So something to really pay attention to then over these next few days of following along with what's going on. Well, Trina, I want to say thank you very much, for joining me to talk about all this. Any other thing that you think people should know or be aware of?
Yeah, I did want to say that with these active weather patterns, the weather can change really rapidly, as well as our forecasts and the information we have to forecast the weather. So I highly recommend staying tuned in to wherever you get your weather source. National Weather Service is a great one, but wherever you tend to get it, just keep your eye on updating, because it can change rapidly.
Fair enough. Yeah, really important. Well, thank you for all you do and letting everybody know. And this is some great advice and great knowledge about this. And like I said, I know you're so busy right now. So thanks for having some time to talk to us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Greg.
All right. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so there we go. Again, learning more about that and how that works. Really appreciate Trina joining us here for Fox 12 Now. But right now, we're going to talk about the roads. What is going on there? What's the preparation like? We've got from the Oregon Department of Transportation, Don Hamilton joining us. Don, as always, great to have you here on the show. Appreciate your availability. I would imagine it's a very busy day for you right now with everything going on, or maybe every winter day is. But a lot happening here over the next 24 hours, specifically with these blizzard warnings in effect, particularly for, like I said, the Cascades, the Gorge. So from your standpoint, to start off, how's ODOT doing during all this?
Well, we're getting ready for this. It's a busy day, not just on Monday, but we're preparing for a busy week up here. We're expecting a lot of snow on Monday, more snow on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, we're expecting a lot of very high winds coming up. And then we're expecting a lot of cold temperatures. We're really going to get a triple header coming up this week, too. We're expecting for a lot of very, very busy winter weather this week.
So when it comes to, I guess let's talk about the first part of it here, the blizzard warnings and the gorge, I guess in particular. What is ODOT doing in preparation for that to prepare for these potentially really hazardous roads?
Well, we're really trying to make sure that all of our winter assets are ready to go. And now, first of all, that means a lot of our equipment. We're making sure that our trucks are ready to go. We're making sure that we have all the resources that we need. That's the de-icer and the sand and the salt and the plows, making sure that's all ready to go. We're making sure that our most important resource, which is our crews, we're making sure that they're rested and out there and ready for when these storms start to hit. That's the most important thing that we can do. So we're really watching the weather forecast, making sure that everything is all set and ready to go for when it's time to go.
Do you think that you're going to have enough resources out there to manage this, or is it inevitable that I-84 could get shut down at some point?
Well, yes and yes, I think is both answers here too. Yes, I think we've got the resources ready to go. It's not like we've had to exhaust the resources that we've got so far this year. We haven't had to hit them very hard at all this year. We've got our supplies are in good shape. Your other question, will the gorge have to be shut down? Will Interstate 84 have to be shut down? It's a little too soon to tell at this point. Yeah, that's a possibility. Anytime that we consider a bad storm coming like this, yeah, that's always a possibility out there in the gorge. We consider closing Troutdale to Hood River. That's where we start to close. We close in that stretch of the gorge because we don't want trucks. We don't want anybody running crazy in the gorge when we get bad wind and we get a bad storm in there. We want them to wait at Hood River. We want them to wait at Troutdale because it's quieter, it's calmer there. There's hotels, there's restaurants, there's a place to get a cup of coffee and to park safely in there too. And we don't want people running around in the gorge on Interstate 84 when there's a really bad weather going on. So we will close things down at Troutdale and at Hood River so that we're not getting a lot of chaos in the gorge.
And when it comes to the cascades, this is the first time since 2012 that we've had an actual blizzard warning go into effect for this. Is there anything specific that you're doing to prepare for that?
In the gorge, yeah, it's the same thing. We're trying to make sure that all of our equipment is ready to go. Now, the gorge can give us a little bit of everything. The gorge gives us all kinds of different sort of weather situations in there too. So that's why we have to watch very carefully in the gorge, make sure we know what's coming and make sure we can figure out what's going to happen.
And what about the cascades part of it, as far as up on the mountain, the warning that's going into effect there, like Highway 26?
That can be a lot more complicated. That's a lot more difficult because that becomes elevation issues and that becomes freezing. Now, we always will look to the snow and ice that we get up there. That's always a real problem up there too. And we're always very aware, when it gets like this, of course, people want to go up to the ski areas and want to go for the winter sports, but we need people to be very, very careful of what the conditions are like on the roads up there too. We're going to get a lot of snow. We're going to get a lot of ice up in there too. Everybody needs to slow down and be very, very careful in the snow and in the ice up there too. We could see some really, really dangerous weather conditions on the roads up there.
You mentioned that the extended look at just some of the other possibilities that could be happening here over the rest of this week, beyond even just these blizzards over the next couple of days. High winds coming up later, potential of lowering snow elevation, even ice. A lot's up in the air as far as possibilities. Do you think ODOT is going to be prepared for that should subsequent weather patterns come in later this week?
I think we're prepared. I think we've been watching this very, very carefully in the recent days, and we've been watching the weather forecast. We've been making sure that our stores and our supplies are ready to go. We're making sure that our equipment is ready to go. The only thing that we can do in advance of a weather event is de-icer. We can put de-icer on the roads before a storm hits. We obviously can't plow and can't put down sand in advance of a storm until there's something to plow or to sand on the road. But we can put down de-icer except when there's rain coming, because all the rain does is wash the de-icer off the road, and we don't want to do that. But we can put down de-icer on the road in advance of a freezing event. That does help, but we can't put it down if there's going to be rain coming too. But the only thing that we can do, we can't plow, we can't put down sand, we can't put down salt, except only after an event hits. So sometimes I've almost thought that winter maintenance is much more art than it is science. So we're really looking at all of these things out there to try to see what we can do. But we're watching this very carefully and getting ready for whatever may come.
With all the resources in place up there on the mountain and at the gorge, you know, I know that you had that extra funding. Do you think that that's helped you to be prepared for this and potentially for if we get more of these coming here through the rest of the winter?
Oh, yes, very much. You know, we were working with the legislative leaders and with Governor Kotek to make sure we had this additional funding. Now, that did a couple of things, and probably most important is it allowed us to make sure that we could provide overtime for our crews, which is critical when we get into a winter event like this, too. We can't keep going without some overtime for our crews. And that additional funding that the legislative leaders promised us is really making sure that we can take care of anything that's coming up too. It did a couple of other things too. It allowed us to order some additional trucks that we're not going to get until next winter, but it'll let us get going for now. But now we've got the overtime assured that we can get, and our crews are going to be able to help us out when we get into this winter storm.
That's great. Any other recommendations that you have for people out there who may, or at least think they need to travel over the next couple of days, over the pass or to the gorge? Any recommendations you'd have for them?
Anybody that's got to go over the Cascades anytime soon should do it on Monday, because we're going to get some bad weather coming up over the next couple of days. And anybody that's traveling, especially in the gorge and in the Cascades coming up soon, check the weather forecast, look out there, go to tripcheck.com. Make sure you know what you're doing out there and look out for each other. There could be some pretty treacherous weather conditions out there.
Well, Don, thank you very much, for joining me here and taking some time out to talk to us about that. It's important information that we're conveying, and it's good to hear that ODOT feels that they're prepared for this and that, you'll feel ready and those crews are getting the overtime and they're going to be available. Any other thing that you want to let people know about?
Everybody be careful out there. We all need to watch out for each other, and we'll all make sure that we can get home safely.
Perfect. Well, Don, thank you very much. Thanks for spending some time with me and to talk about this. Appreciate all that you're doing. And, hopefully we get through this next couple of days and everything will be fine.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
All right. Thanks, Don. With this snow coming on, there's a lot of people that like to get up there to the mountain, whether it's going skiing, climbing, hiking. A lot of fun to be had up there, but also, let's be honest, there's a lot of danger too. It's important to stay safe. It's important to prepare right. It's important to know what to do once you're up there. And in the event of an emergency, what do you do? It's better to know now than later. And that is why I'm really excited that we have our guest right now from Portland Mountain Rescue. We have Mark Montford. Mark, thank you very much for joining us today to talk about this. I love getting up to the mountains, but there are dangers out there. There's important things that people need to know about. But to start off, could you maybe tell everybody about your organization and just what it is?
So first, Greg, thanks for inviting Portland Mountain Rescue to talk today. And just like you, man, I'm jonesing for some snow. Let's get on the mountain and get out. I'm a rescuer with Portland Mountain Rescue. We're a volunteer search and rescue organization that's accredited by the Mountain Rescue Association to do high alpine rescues and high angle rescues. So most of our work is up on Mount Hood or in the cliffs in the gorge. And
that's a wide range of area there that you just mentioned.
Oh, sure.
That's a huge territory to cover of rescues. And so you cover all of that.
We do. We report directly to the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, and we also work under mutual aid agreements with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, Hood River, and even over in Washington. So we're called out when there's a specific need that fits our expertise.
And, something that I brought up there earlier, a lot of people going out to enjoy it, and a lot of times there's never any issues, but things do happen. And I think no matter what, when you're going up there, I would imagine it's important to plan ahead. And if you could you walk us through maybe some of the things that people need to plan on and just think about before they rush up there to get out there into the snow?
Yeah, so we have a motto, PMR, it's know your route, know the conditions, be prepared, and have a backup plan. And it's really about that simple. Think ahead. What's your objective for the day? What are you really out to go do? And then make sure that you've looked at maps and understand what the terrain's going to be like. Know the conditions, particularly now that we're getting into the part of the year where there's snow and skiing. Understanding the snow conditions, the weather, and more particularly understanding the avalanche risk. You can go to the Northwest Avalanche Center's website and they'll tell you right there, hey, it's high risk today. Let's stay on low angle terrain. And then, of course, being prepared is being prepared to stay out overnight. That's probably the biggest one anytime you're venturing away from the resorts and into the backcountry.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, it's easy to get excited. It's easy to want to rush up there and just think about the day, but should something happen, to be prepared for staying overnight. Before we even ask that, though, I wanted to go back and ask you one thing. You mentioned it's important to know the maps, to study that, to know where you're going and know what you're doing. For a lot of people now, that's just looking at your phone. Phone service may not work up there. What do you recommend for people to do as far as knowing the terrain and the areas that they're going into?
Well, first, I just want to acknowledge what you just said, and that is most of us look at our phone. I'm included. And the key there is to know how to use your phone as a navigation device. And as you said, you may not have cell service where you're going, so it's important that you have an app on your phone that allows you to cache maps, download the maps, put them on your phone. Then you can call them up even when you don't have service. And then, of course, there's the big one, that's battery life. It's important to have a backup battery. It's also important to just use your phone when you actually need it. If you've got the maps cached, put your phone on airplane mode when you're in the backcountry. You use almost no battery at all in that mode.
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea on that. And I think that's probably something, from people that I've talked to may not realize that you can cache those maps and download those maps. So download all of it, ahead of time. That way you have that on there. Going to the next thing you mentioned, which is being prepared to stay the night. So how should people prepare for that? And should they do that when it's just whether they're hiking, whether they're climbing, whether they're skiing, and, going away from resorts? Or what I guess goes into planning for that?
So there's this saying that of threes, that you can last 3 weeks without food, you can last 3 days without water, but in harsh conditions, you're only going to make it about 3 hours without some warmth, without some shelter. And that just starts with what you wear, making sure that you've got gear that protect you from the wind, protect you from precipitation, and you've got insulating layers to slip on. In many weather conditions, that's enough right there. If you've got good insulating clothing and something that protects you from the rain, you're going to make it through the night okay. If you're going into more extreme conditions or the weather might be pretty bad, it's great to have a small lightweight tarp in your pack, or I carry a little, lightweight bivy sack that's you just slip in it and it covers you like a cocoon, and that's enough to get you through the night right there. So those things, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I bet that's probably pretty lightweight too.
Oh yeah, I mean the bivy sack that I carry probably weighs I'm sure it's less than a pound. It's probably half a pound. but it's good protection. It's great to have something that'll insulate you from the ground. If you've got a pack, you can sit on that. That'll insulate you from the ground. But many of us carry a small little egg crate pad to sit on, or even one that's long enough you could kind of curl up on it. That's great just for lunch stops, right? So it's not, none of this stuff is just for emergencies. It's things that you can use on any hike that aren't gonna cost you a lot of weight. Having some food is super nice. Even if it's just some gorp, something you can snack on to keep your energy up. You know, low blood sugar is a big deal when things are going bad for you out on the trail, or away from the trail. All of a sudden your blood sugar crashes, you start getting cold, you're hypothermic, your judgment goes down. So it's great to have some calories. I always have some extra calories in my pack. Actually, my wife checks my pack before I go out. Do you have food? And some way to have water. You're going to carry some water, of course, anytime you're hiking, but it's super great to have some sort of little filter, or if you're going into snow, have a small stove that you can use to melt some snow. Just getting some warm water in you when you're stuck out in the snow, man, that'll really improve your odds.
And all those are things that you can plan ahead on, pack in, and just have them there just in case. Check your pack, but then know that that's there just should that need arise. And I would imagine, just going back to that taking up too much room, I'm sure that with good equipment, it doesn't take up much room and probably doesn't weigh much, and it's just something that will be nice to have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, when I mentioned something like a stove, shoot, all over YouTube, you can find videos that show you how to make a tiny little stove out of a soda pop can, and you burn alcohol fuel in it, so you can, repurpose one of those bourbon flasks that's sitting in the back of your liquor cabinet and fill it full of just plain old rubbing alcohol in one of these tiny little stoves. Gosh, the weight penalty there, 6 ounces maybe. And it can just live in the bottom of your pack, and it's ready for that time when you really need it.
That's a great idea. I didn't even think about that, using a flask for something like that. What are the most common mistakes that people make when they head out into the mountains during the winter?
I'd say the most common factor that shows up in so many of our rescue missions, it's all judgment, but it's our tendency to keep going even when something's going wrong, to keep heading up the mountain, to keep heading down the trail. I'm not sure this is the right trail, but I'm just going to keep going a little further, see what happens. Oh, wow, now I'm not really on a trail. Or I'm getting cold, but I think I'll just keep going some more. And pretty soon you find out you're too cold to use your fingers to get your gloves on or to zip up your jacket. I think that's the biggest one, is people don't stop whenever things are beginning to go badly. If you just stop for a minute, slip on an extra layer, have some calories, drink some water, think about, hey, what's really happening here? Is the weather turning bad on me? Am I not as in good a shape as I thought I was? Am I positive I'm on the right trail? I think that's the biggest thing you can take with you to the backcountry that'll keep you safer, is just the willingness to stop and think. Just talk to your buddy or talk to your dog or whoever's with you and think about, hey, what do I need to do here to get things settled so that I feel good about it again?
In that kind of situation, because I've certainly been there myself, where it's like, well, I'm just going to keep going. That if I just keep going, we'll get over that. That's something to do. Is it better to, you mentioned stop, think about it. Is it better to turn around and go back the way you came, or to sit in place? Like, what do you do in that situation? Or I imagine it depends a little bit, but what's the right answer there?
Well, I think you're talking a little bit, Greg, about being disoriented, being lost, the L word, I'm lost. And if you're, you know, if you're not sure where you are, what we always say is, again, stop. All right, collect your thoughts, look around. If I look back, can I see where I've come from? Or, you know, is it muddy? Do I have tracks in the ground? Is there a trail? Can I go back the way I came? So you asked the, you know, the obvious question, should I go back the way I came? Heck yeah, unless there's something dangerous about the way you came that makes you feel like it's not safe to go back that way. Yeah, you're always going to want to try to retrace your steps. If you're truly disoriented and it's not obvious to you how to go backwards, now let's again stop, think about it. Let's be methodical. All right, I'm going to go 100 feet in 8 different directions around the compass. And how am I going to do that without getting further lost? Well, I can set my pack right here, hanging on a tree where I can see it 100 feet away, right? And I go back, I start heading out in a straight line towards a landmark, a tree, a bush. I keep looking back to make sure I can see my pack. I don't find what I'm looking for. I go back to my pack. I go in another direction, do the same thing over and over. Just be calm and methodical. And know that whatever the situation is, you're going to improve it just by gathering information, as long as you can do that without getting further lost. That's what's a good start. And I think almost always, you know, if you do that soon enough, you're going to find yourself. You're going to find the trail. You're going to remember where you were before.
So it really comes down to, if you start feeling confused or you're not sure about where you are, or you're not sure about where you're going, just stop. That's what I'm picking up.
Oh yeah, stop and think. And you know, I'm always looking at this like if I'm alone, but often you're with somebody else. And I think when you're with somebody else, it's even more important to be adamant about stopping. You may be embarrassed to say to your partner, hey, I don't know where we are. I think we should stop. No, don't be embarrassed. You need to say it. Nobody's going to think less of you because you decided to take that precaution. Yeah.
Stop. It seems really simple. And that's why it's good to talk about it now, not when you're up there and don't realize what's going on, but to have that as a mind frame of, should something happen, stop, think, have a snack, you know, take a drink of water. All great advice and good to know ahead of time. So for you, for Portland Mountain Rescue, what is the situation where you get involved as far as going to find someone? What happens before you get involved?
Well, sure. I give you the process. It's pretty simple and kind of obvious once I say it. Again, we're deployed by the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office decides that they need us when somebody in distress has called 911, or a friend or family member has reported somebody missing by calling 911. So it always starts with a call to 911. You know, don't ever try to call a rescue organization yourself. We're not going to respond. We'll simply tell you to call 911. So the 911 dispatcher gets the call. They are going to want to know where you are, and that's a really important thing to have at your fingertips when you make a 911 call. If possible, have your coordinates, which again, you can find on your phone right there in the Compass app that's there in almost all cell phones. Your coordinates are going to appear right there on the compass, just right at the bottom of that view. Give that to the 911 operator. You're going to tell them you're in the backcountry. So they're then going to call the sheriff's office. Your call will get referred to the search and rescue deputy that's on duty, and that deputy will decide what resources are needed. Are we going to use one of the large search and rescue organizations like Clackamas Search and Rescue that do so many of the rescues, or is it going to be a difficult high angle or high alpine mission? And they're going to call us. So we get called by the sheriff's office, and there are a few of us in Portland Mountain Rescue that take that call. We then send out an alert to our whole unit, and everybody's cell phone goes nuts. And the message to them says, hey, we need rescuers for a search near Illumination Saddle on Mount Hood. And immediately they'll, anybody that can pull away from their work, their family is healthy, they'll reply and say, yeah, I'll be there. And now it's kind of important. You ask about the process. I'm going to give you the most important thing to know about the process, and that's time. When you're in the backcountry, it took you time to get there from wherever it is you live. And it took you time to get your gear together to go and do that hike or that ski trip. The same is true for the rescuers. So, we're 15 minutes into the 911 call, probably before that search and rescue deputy has talked to a rescue leader at 911, and we've put out a call to our membership. Now those members got to go those rescuers got to grab their pack, make sure it's got the right gear in it for this mission, throw some food and water in it. They got to change clothes. They probably got to get home from work or wherever it is they are to go get that gear and then get in their vehicle. And in this case, Illumination Saddle, drive up to Timberline Lodge. Shoot, all of that in good traffic conditions is going to take 2 hours at a minimum. And so now we're 15 minutes for the 911 process, 2 hours to get rescuers on the mountain. Then we got to get enough rescuers. We got a team. We got to put together a plan. We don't just go running into the backcountry. You got a plan. And then we've got to start moving. So, we're probably not even hitting the trail or getting on a snowcat until 2.5 hours, 3 hours, probably 3 hours to the 911 call. And then from there, we got to get to you. However long it took you to get there, it's going to take us that long. So, add another hour, 2 hours. Illumination Saddle at 2 hours. So we're 5 hours into your 911 call before rescuers in best case situation are going to get to you. That's a long time to be sitting there injured, lost, cold. If you don't have, as I said, if you're not prepared to stay out overnight, you need to recognize it's going to be a long time. And I should make sure I get calories in me. Let's get all my layers on. Let's find a place where I can crawl in behind a rock and get out of the wind. It's going to be a while before I get a rescue. And if somebody's injured in your group, and that's why you need a rescue, one of the things that happens there is all the other members of the party, their adrenaline goes, and they're all about taking care of that injured friend. And about an hour later, they've got that friend stabilized. They got them warm in a sleeping bag. That'd be great. And all of a sudden, everybody's adrenaline craters. None of the people in that party have been drinking water. None of them eating. And players. Now we've got the whole group at risk of hypothermia. So it's really important in that situation that somebody in the party steps forward and says, hey, I need to be a leader here. I need to stand up and look back. What's really going on at this scene? How do I make sure everybody's going to stay safe for the next 5 or 8 hours? Hey, Jesse, don't you have a stove in your pack? Get that out and heat up some water for everybody. Hey, Alice, go around and get everybody's food. Let's see what food we've got. And let's make sure everybody gets food. And John, you've got a tarp in your pack, right? Why don't you just string that up? And, if you've done all that, everybody's going to be fine. Everybody's going to be fine. You're going to have a good story to tell, and somebody's broken arm's going to get fixed and healed, and it's all going to be great. If you don't do all that, it could snowball downhill.
Which is unfortunate because that does happen. But I mean, this is all great advice. This is what it goes back to, you saying, be prepared to stay the night. And I think that's probably, to me, that feels like something that a lot of people may not think about, especially if they're I'm just going for a day hike, I'll be back in a few hours. but things can happen, things can change. Something else I wanted to ask just in association with this. So say you're out there, you get injured, or you find a safe place to stay still, you realize you're lost. What's the number one thing that people can do to help rescue organizations like yourself find them?
Well, I put it in two scenarios. The first one is, before I ever left home, I told somebody else where I was going, and I told them when I expect to be back, and I told them what I'd like them to do if I'm not back then, right? That's the great scenario. Because you're not back, and your friend's going to say, oh, Mark said he'd be back by 4 o'clock. And he said, if I'm not back by dark, call 911 and tell them I went to the Ruckle Ridge Trail in the Gorge. That's a great scenario, because now the sheriff's going to call us, and we're going to know where to go. We'll find Mark's car at the trailhead, and off we'll go up the trail, and we'll get him. We'll get him back. In that situation, it's good to just stay put. If you can't retrace your steps, don't get further lost. Try to do things that'll make it easy for us to spot you. Maybe you can see that you can move to a clearer area, or maybe you can move up a little higher where you can get cell phone coverage. If you are going to move, leave a trail, start dropping your chewing gum wrappers. It's the only time that's okay, by the way, but drop your candy wrappers, do something that, helps you see where you've been and might help us, find clues and find you. But try to be seen and try to stay generally where you are, so you're not getting deeper into trouble. And here's a big one. Don't start wandering down to the sound of the interstate when you're in the gorge, because you're gonna go over a cliff. All right, so that's when you've done the right thing, and you told your buddy where you're going to go, when you're going to be home, and what to do if you're not home then. If you don't have that, if you sit there thinking, geez, it's Friday afternoon, nobody knows I'm hiking, my family or my roommates aren't going to notice I'm gone because they're all out of town, and the first time anybody's going to miss me is Monday morning when I don't show up for work. That's not a scenario where you necessarily want to just stay put, because nobody's looking for you. And if nobody's looking for you, you're on your own. You need to be found yourself. And I'll go back to what I said earlier, and that's, okay, start trying to find your trail and be methodical. Go around the spokes of a wheel, going out and seeing if you can find something familiar, a trail, a landmark. And that's what you're going to try to do. You may end up just simply having to pick a direction and sticking with that direction and just going as long as the train's safe. But also, maybe, Greg, could I take a minute and talk about how to use a cell phone in that situation?
Yeah, what is the best way to use a cell phone when you're lost up in the woods like this, or up on the mountain?
Well, the great scenario is you have 2 bars and you call 911, right? And that works a lot of places in the backcountry. And, use the Gorge, for example. Some places in the Gorge it works. But, just at Multnomah Falls, if you start hiking up that paved trail to the top of Multnomah Falls, as you start going inland towards the top of the falls, you're going to lose cell service. In fact, cell service is spotty down at the Multnomah Falls Lodge. So someplace like in the Gorge, where we've got all these canyons that go up and great places to hike, what you're going to want to do if you don't have cell service is see if you can get someplace where you're going to get more bars. Moving out of a canyon, moving up onto the top of a ridge, will almost always improve your reception. So those are good things to do. back to battery, one thing that really runs down your battery is trying to make a call when you don't have service, when you've got one bar. Your phone works super hard reaching out to cell towers. If it can't do it, it just runs the battery and it just sucks battery life. So don't do that. Don't try to make calls repeatedly if your first call fails. Something you can do is send a text message. Texts take very little, it's a tiny little data package, and your phone will keep trying to send that data package several times, and may get a moment where it's got enough cell connection to get it out. So send that message to a trusted friend and tell them to call 911. There you go. You can't send a text message to 911 itself. Don't try that. It's not going to work. But send it to a friend and somebody that's in your contacts and tell them what you need. If you're not getting service, I suggest turning the phone off, completely off, relocate, and then turn it on again. Because even when you're not trying to make the call, your phone is still always trying to check, it's sampling signals to see if it can connect with some cell towers, and that's running down your battery. So, if I'm really lost, one of my highest priorities is going to be preserving battery life on the phone. That phone's super valuable to me and my chances of rescue.
Great advice. I mean, all of this has been really, really good things for everybody, I think, to think about before they head up. And like I mentioned, whether you're planning on a huge, backcountry backpacking trip, or you're just going for a day hike, you just want to go up there and enjoy it for a few hours. Important to know, because so many things can change, so many factors can come up, and being prepared like that, like you've just given everybody advice for, can improve your chances of being safe, improve your chances of being found, and in some cases improve your chances of survival in like the worst case situation. I mean, this sounds like really important things, and they're not huge things that people can do. It's not an overtaxing thing to prepare.
These aren't big steps. But you said, it improve your chances of being safe and rescued and all that. Also improve your chances of fun, right? Because if you feel prepared and you are prepared, and when things aren't going quite right, you stop and think about how to improve it. You're just going to have more fun, and that's what it's about. That's why we go out there. We're out there to have a good time, right?
Right. Yep. And if you know that you have all that stuffed away in your backpack or whatever, you've got all the stuff you need. Yeah, alleviates that concern, that worry. You're right. That does make it a lot more fun. That is a good way to look at it as well. Well, for Mark, I really want to say I appreciate your time too in talking about this, because this stuff is really important. And for everybody out there, that likes to get out and enjoy the wilderness, and there's a lot of beautiful things on Mount Hood, a lot of great places to explore. And it's important, though, for people, especially if you haven't been out there much, to understand those dangers and how to be prepared for it. And you've helped us do that tremendously, which is what your organization does all the time. And I want to let people know, if you can, let everybody know where they can go to find more resources, more information, more understanding of all the things we just talked about today.
Well, the internet's your friend. If what you want to do is really start getting into the backcountry, especially in the winter, backcountry skiing, maybe mountaineering, go hire a guide, or better yet, go join the Mazamas. It's a big organization. They've got an incredible education program. Super supportive for beginners, and plenty of opportunities for people that are advanced to really take their skills to another level. So I can't emphasize, joining an organization like the Mazamas enough. And the other one is join a hiking club. There are a bunch of great hiking clubs around town, and start asking around, and you'll find one. And there will be experienced hikers that like to do the same thing you do, and you'll go back to that fun part. You'll have more fun. Something I didn't mention earlier, when we were talking about using your phone as a navigation device, a couple of really good apps out there. Gaia, G-I-A-I, Gaia, is a GPS app that's got super great map services in it that you can cache. Cal Topo is another one that allow you to cache maps. And those are things, just telling you what our rescuers use. So those are the two things we use the most. Great resources.
Fantastic. Well, Mark, thank you very much
It's
for
been
joining
fun.
me today. Yeah, really glad that you had time to do this and to get this information out to everybody. And thanks for doing what you do, and everybody at your organization, everybody out there who helps save people when they need it, and helps go out there and volunteers your time and efforts and resources to do that. So thank you, Mark. Thanks for being here on Fox 12 Now.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Get out there and have fun. Be safe.
Well, ODOT just received $19 million in additional funding from the governor. So we're going to talk about that funding, how they're preparing, all of that stuff right now with our guest, Don Hamilton from ODOT. Don, thank you very much for joining me here today.
Good to be with you, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
And, I'm excited to talk to you and find out some of this information. So I guess to start off, we have the news that there was $19 million of additional funding going to ODOT to help repair. Can you walk us through what you're using that funding for?
Well, we're really stoked that the governor and the legislative leaders are agreeing to provide some of these funds for us. This will be coming up. This is going to get us to a point where we were last year, where we can provide the services that we were hoping to do. We've been talking about this for a while, that this helps us restore the maintenance services to where they were last year, that we're going to be able to provide the overtime that we always need every year for the staff. We're going to be able to get the new fleet procurement, snowplows, that we were hoping to provide for this year. We can address some vegetation management issues. We're going to be providing some striping on the edge lines at the side of the road on some low volume roads. That was one of the things that was going to kind of drop off for us this year as the resources, as the funds were starting to decline for us this year too. So this $19 million is really going to get us to where we need to be. We're so pleased that the legislature and the governor is going to get us going this year and get us to where we need to be.
Well, you mentioned, there's the overtime pay, which naturally that goes into it for when you have this, but it sounds like some of the other things are very visible changes that people are going to be seeing if you're adjusting vegetation and new lines and things like that. So this is something that people are going to notice.
Yeah, people are going to notice this too. I mean, we haven't had any snow in the Portland area yet this year, but as you were saying, yeah, well, we might. That may be coming up too. We were worried that with the decline in the funding that we were going to have, that we might not be able to plow as frequently as we have in the past. But now we're pretty confident that we're going to be able to maintain the snowy roads as we have been able to in the past, once we have these new resources coming in too. So we're pleased that we're going to be able to get the resources out there that we're going to need for this too. I mean, we have all of our tools are ready to go. We have our sand and our de-icer and our salt and the plows, and they're out there ready to go. But we're getting to where we need to be, and we're ready to hit the snow if it comes to us.
And, with something like that, I guess it's probably hard to estimate how many days you think you would be able to handle, because it depends on how many storms that we have. But you feel that you're adequately prepared for the upcoming winter.
We feel like we're ready to go. I mean, we will do the job ahead of us with the resources that we've got. And that's always the case out there. We've always got to address the issues as best we can with the resources that we have out there too. If things get ugly, which, certainly they do sometimes in there too, we can call in resources from other parts of the state. We look to Eastern Oregon, Central Oregon, where they certainly have a lot more snow, and they have to attack the winter with a lot more resources than we have here in Northwest Oregon, here in the Valley. But we have, on occasion, we've called in resources from other parts of the state. We call for help sometimes if we need it, and they will come and they'll bring us help. They'll bring in extra resources, extra staff. They'll bring in extra equipment. So when we need help, we'll call for it. But that only happens when things get a little bit out of hand, and that happens sometimes.
Yeah, it does. And I guess to that point, one of the things that can really mess up the roads here in Northwest Oregon, there's the snow side of it, But ice can really cause a lot of problems once that occurs. And I know there's different ways of attacking that and trying to mitigate some of the issues with ice. What's the plan this year for ODOT?
We hope for sunshine and 40 degrees. That's our best way to attack the snow. When we get ice, we need the help of the public when things go bad like that too. We have the tools that we mentioned. We have salt, we have plows, we have sand, and we have the de-icer out there too. A lot of times winter maintenance is, I've always thought it's sort of more art than it is science out there for understanding which tools to use and when out on the road. So attacking ice, ice is really the worst thing that you can get out there on the road. We've got to get the help of the public when things get really bad. We need the public's help to just stay home, stay off the road, make sure that we can get our equipment out there and do the job that they need to do without the public on the road, if at all possible. If we can get the public out there and to stay off the road, when we get our plows and our trucks and our equipment and our salt and our sanders out there, without the public out there, that gets us to be able to attack the roads, attack the ice better, as best as we can out there too. It's not easy. This is a tough job when we're out there, and when it goes on for days and days and days, wow, that's what we want to avoid out there too. So the more the public can help us when we're in the middle of a really bad winter storm, a really bad ice episode, the more help we can get from the public, the better off we all are.
What are some things that people can do at home, in anticipation of at some point we will have bad roads?
Well, they can stay home and make sure that their own facilities are taken care of. Don't dump their own snow out on the roads. They've got to be able to avoid that. They've got to be able to understand that their crews, their local city crews, that the state crews are doing the best job they can out there too. Make sure that when they do have to go out on the road, that they don't pass the equipment on the right. That's very dangerous out there too. Make sure that you allow the plows and the sanders and the salt trucks and all of those crews, give them the space that they need to do the job that they need to get done out there on the road. So when you're out on the road, make sure that you give them the room that they need to get the job done. When they're at home, take an extra day. Take a snow day at home if you can do that at all. If there was one advantage to the pandemic, I can't imagine there's any advantage to the pandemic. I can't believe I'm saying that. But at least we understood what it meant to work at home a little better. So if at all possible, take an extra snow day when we get hit hard by a storm. That might help. It might let the crews out there, the city crews, the county crews, the state crews, to get the job done, get the road clear, might help everybody out a little bit more.
Do you take general, far out forecasting, which I know can't be 100% accurate, but I'm talking about, months or predictions for the winter into consideration when you're planning for the winter season?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're watching that a lot. We're getting briefings from the National Weather Service. We're watching the broadcasters, too. The TV weather crews are very sophisticated in what they're doing also, in how they're looking at the weather forecast. But, obviously, you've got to be ready for whatever is going to happen out there, too. We're watching very carefully for what is coming up. We're watching the long-term forecast. We're watching the medium-term forecast, and then we're watching the sky. We're trying to find out what happens out there too. That's the most important thing. Here's something that we need to know about what's going on the roads. There's usually these tools that we were talking about. The salt and the sand and the plows. Obviously, you can't plow anything until there's something on the road. But the de-icer, the magnesium chloride, that's the one tool that we can put out on the road before something comes out on the road. We can put de-icer on the road. We can treat the roads before a storm comes. But we can't put anything else on the road before. But you got to be very, very careful. We were talking about how sort of winter maintenance is sometimes more art than it is science. But you put that de-icer on the road before. You can't put it when it's going to rain because that just washes the de-icer off the road. Taxpayers don't like it when we're washing the de-icer off the road. That's a waste of money. But when you can, when the forecast is right, when you can put the de-icer on the road before it comes, before the rain, sorry, before the snow or the ice hits, you're really having a real positive impact on the road. The de-icer can prevent ice and snow from bonding to the surface of the road. That's going to have a really good impact on the road out there too. So the de-icer is a real tool that we can use out on the road before the storm hits. It's the one tool we can do before anything hits out there too. So that's part of when we're looking at the forecast, as you were talking about. That's the short-term forecast that we're looking at.
And you mentioned it's that specific de-icer is kind of the magic tool there for that, to be able to put that out ahead of time. Do you think that you have enough with the funding that you just received?
So far, so good. I mean, we haven't had to use that here in the Portland area so far this year. We did do a little treating back about a week ago in the Portland area, back in late November, around Thanksgiving. We had a lot of cold and some frosty mornings, and we did have our crews out treating the de-icer on the roads out there too, because we were getting a lot of cold mornings out there too. Now it was warming up later in the day, so it wasn't too bad, but we did have our crews out before dawn on those frosty mornings out there. So we were treating those highways. The Fremont Bridge was a particular problem out there on those mornings. So we had a couple of days where we were laying the magnesium chloride out on the roads. So with a rust inhibitor, by the way, I should add. So we did have some days where we were putting that down. So we will pick some spots. Now, let's remember one thing too, is our maintenance crews are out there really all in their own particular areas. They're trying to find the right spots. They know their areas. They know the areas that have a lot of, let's say, shady areas where they know that area is going to freeze up. I'm going to go put some de-icer out there. So they know their areas in particular. So there's not like one rule that has to go for everywhere around in there. They know where to go, and it's very localized, our maintenance crews, what they do. So they will go out when it's going to get cold out there. They'll know the spots to go to.
They're used to it. Yeah, they've seen it. They know it's this one bend right here that's going to be a problem, or things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Since it is happening right now at the coast, I'm just curious. You know, there is some flooding right now over on the coast on 101, or at least right before we started. I haven't updated it since we've been talking. Maybe that's changed, but there was a section there that was flooded. What do you do in those situations? Is there anything that can be done when the road floods like that? Well,
you know, on one level, this is one time when ODOT can blame the moon for some of the problems that we're having out there, because we're having some closures on Highway 101. This is south of Seaside and around Tillamook. And this is partly due to the tide. We're getting some king tides, they call them, around in there. And so we've had closures on 101 south of Seaside and in Tillamook around in there too. And around on Highway 6, just east of Tillamook, we're getting some closures too. And at this point, we're really just waiting for the tide to scale back. We're waiting for these waters to recede before we can get these roads open. And we don't have any prediction yet about what that's going to be. So we're just waiting for these waters to recede. We're getting a lot of speculation at this point, but it's really just that. It's speculation. We'll get those roads open as soon as we can safely do so. Maybe later tonight, maybe in the morning. I just don't know. I don't want to guess, which is right. What I was just doing. So,
yeah, I mean, this is one case where nature really does have to take its course right there. So
nature always wins in situations like this. Yeah. There's only so much we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Don, thank you for joining me here today to talk about this. Anything else that you want to let people know about for the winter? We may have covered everything, but just
Well, this is just a reminder that when we're getting this is an Oregon storm. It's not an awful Oregon storm, but it's an Oregon storm. It's got a lot of water in it. It's got a lot of rain, and it's just a reminder that we all need to be careful and we all need to look out for each other out there. Slow down, look out for the high water. We all need to make sure that we can get home safely.
Well, Don, thank you very much for joining me to share that information and letting people know about how that funding is going and the preparation that you're doing. And thanks, for all you do out there. That is as you mentioned, that's a very hard job when this does happen. And I'm sure, people are never 100% happy about anything. So I'm sure you have to face that too. But it's you out there that are, keeping the roads safe for us. So really appreciate that.